Up to $135 billion lost in COVID era unemployment benefits stolen by fraudsters. This is fiat world, fiat clown world. This is what happens when you have a broken currency. People always, Brandon, it can't be that easy. Brandon, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. Bitcoin aligns incentives. When you have a sound money, when you have the ability to not have funds, money, wealth stolen from you, inflated away, and siphoned away your time and energy, this starts to melt away. Human behavior does change. This is where George Gammon, I believe, is way off base. Argued to him this point actually directly. He believes that education is going to change, and Bitcoin sound money doesn't just change people. Well, it does. Bitcoin does change people. It's changed myself. I am the testimony myself. The way I think, my professions, how I look at things, the businesses I have, all changed because of Bitcoin. The way I think, how I think about the world, how I think about investing, every single thing, how I think about my children, what's going to happen in the future, my wife, everything changed because of Bitcoin. And that wasn't the case 5 years ago. But over the last handful of years, I have been able to change. I changed the way I talk to my family. I try to reframe what they're focusing on. Stop worrying about politics as much. You have to, not be so worried about what's going on in the day-to-day news, but vote with your money and your feet is just as much as you do at the ballot box, and your voice, and let your voice be heard. But the money does change you. When you have a finite money that captures deflation, it's neutral, but it captures deflation and puts it back into the people's hands and gives them wealth and gives them property rights that can't be seized and can't be stolen by the governments of the world, then we are talking a completely different game. We are talking every modicum, every single thing that enters the Bitcoin network, that network, and it grows their purchasing power, that increases the standard of living and lowers costs for the average person. That is the world we want to live in, where in a fiat debt-based world that continually runs away from people, we have higher and higher costs, as we've seen. I don't need to explain this to anybody. Higher and higher costs. We're printing out of, typing digits into a computer, $135 billion in COVID-era unemployment benefits gone, stolen, just like the 200 billion that have gone to Ukraine. We just did a video on that a month or two ago. The politicians we have, because they're not incentivized to track where it's going, because they want to launder their own money and enrich themselves, so they don't want you to know where it actually went. Just like the Pentagon, losing track of billions of dollars. You can't make this stuff up. They just voted that down to track the Ukrainian spending and where the cash is going. Just like this, COVID-era unemployment benefits. PPP, we know that. That's a separate story in and of itself. All the fraud and waste that was there as well. And then a lot of the funds weren't even used. So this is the funds that were used. Then there was all kinds of funds that weren't even used because they couldn't even figure it out. They're like, okay, what do we do with this, I guess? Well, we got to use it somehow or else we're not going to get more funds again in the future. What an incentive structure as a government agency. Well, we have to use all of it because if we don't, then we won't get more next year. That's what happens. Fiat does not align any incentives. It aligns its incentives off of corruption, off of money laundering, off of ill will, bad faith, bad investment, anything but merit. Bitcoin does the opposite of that. Bitcoin aligns all those incentives, right? If you have an iPhone that you sell 10 years ago as Apple, and you got 1,000 Bitcoin for that iPhone, because that was the price at the time, that was the purchasing power at the time of Bitcoin, you now have 1,000 Bitcoin. Well, your 1,000 Bitcoin might have been worth $1,000 at that time. But if you have, let's do the quick math here, $1,000 times, was it $26,000 per Bitcoin right now, you now have $26 million. So you sold that one iPhone, and your iPhone was $1,000 at the time, but now it's worth $26 million today in your bank. Do you think that Apple would become a better company if they had more time to not worry so much about scamming their customers and giving them cheap batteries or things like that, but they're able to spend more time on research and development, giving them a phone that works on Mars, creating all kinds of new things that we don't even know, and giving people products that you sold it to them one time, they don't even need another phone, right? Because now they're growing in purchasing power. But you have to continue working though, because Apple's going to spend down that Bitcoin, and they're going to need to accumulate more Bitcoin, because once you get rid of Bitcoin, right, it's going to become harder to get more of it over time. But that's the beauty of it. What you're left with, you can then work and provide value in exchange for more Bitcoin, obviously. That's the beauty of this. But also the Bitcoin you do have on your balance sheet becomes worth more, and there's more purchasing power, aligning incentives. The beauty of Bitcoin, opposite of the scams of fiat, the missing world we live in, is Satoshi, by discovering Bitcoin and putting this together, monetizes greed. It monetizes human fear and greed. It monetizes human emotions, the human condition. It doesn't ask humans to change. Nolan Bowerley talks about this all the time. But Bitcoin doesn't ask anyone to change. It meets you where you are. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin. And that's the beauty of a neutral money that is deflationary by nature, captures deflation. Where fiat incentivizes greed. It incentivizes trying to do more and more and more and more and more, spending less time with your family, more divorces, more craziness, over and over again, trying to get more, trying to tear down other buildings and trying to build up your own, trying to do. That's a world we don't want to live in. We don't want to live in a world of inflation where the bag stays the same or shrinks and there's less and less in it, or there's worse ingredients in our food because they're trying to meet the same margins that they used to have, or they're putting worse chemicals and pesticides in their soils and in the foods because they're trying to meet the same margins. You see where I'm going with this. Bitcoin doesn't ask you to change. Bitcoin monetizes everything and aligns all those incentives. It puts the customer and the business in the same track. It renders useless banks, really, at the end of the day, central banks, probably most of government, but that's okay. New forms, new things will come about in the way we govern ourselves, but it will incentivize better behavior. And we won't need as much of that. We won't need as much police. You want to defund the police? Great. Incentivize better behavior. Incentivize people to be better. Incentivize people to do more. Incentivize people to have more time in their hands to go do their passion, their calling, and do something they love instead of having to get on the hamster wheel and jump into traffic at 7 a.m. every day, honking their horn, road raging, and then missing time with their family that they could be spending teaching, learning, growing, and spending with their family and their kids. That's the world we are entering with Bitcoin. It's a simple choice. It is a very simple choice. And choices in life should be simple at the end of the day. Only in fiat, when they're flapping our gums and trying to make do, like Krugman said, it's very peculiar why people think that the economy is doing poorly when a lot of things say that it's doing well. That's because in fiat currencies, you have to flap your gums, you have to talk, you have to distract people, obfuscation, and tell people things are going well, hedonic adjustments in your stats. You have to get rid of stats because you can't tell people what's actually going on. It's all fiat, it's all talk. But in Bitcoin, in an equity-based world, it's all action, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words. Your actions speak louder than your words. That is Bitcoin. So I am thankful and I'm grateful for the future we have in front of us. And it's a simple choice onto the Bitcoin life raft. We're early, but we need more education. We need more people in this world so we can minimize the collateral damage in this transition from the legacy sinking fiat Titanic onto the Bitcoin life raft, the sound money life raft. I appreciate you and your time, your energy. Please share us out because the algorithm hates truth. Question everything with boldness, even the existence of God himself. Trust but verify. And this is not financial advice, it's freedom advice. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.